And then Mila continues to track.
OTC, stand by on that. Copy.
Mila continues to track until 7 minutes 30 seconds into the flight, at which time we'll be switching to the TDRS East Tracking and Data Relay satellite.
OTC DPS.
Go ahead, DPS.
Pass ops transition complete. DPS ready for BFS transition to ops 101.
Copy. CDR OTC, clear your pass fault sum and take BFS to ops 1 per your checklist.
CDR cleared to clear the pass fault sum and take BFS to ops 1 per the checklist. Here it comes.
Going to Ops 101 puts the flight computers in launch mode for the flight profile that has been loaded into them based on the upper level conditions as it flies through the atmosphere.
And
OTC, CDR, BFS stops 1 complete, and the pass spec is also cleared.
copy. And PLT OTC, configure your horizontal situation configuration per your checklist.
And OTC, PLT in work.
Everybody seems to be getting comfortable with
Your steer per your checklist also.
what they're being told about the
Work, and as a heads up, I'd like to increase the brightness of CDR1 and CDR2.
Okay. PVD OTC.
We're getting comfortable with what they are seeing or being told about the ice, but they still want to see the images that the team is bringing back from the pad.
PVD OTC. 1212.
And they're now finished with that. They're headed back toward the Launch Control Center.
And CDFS, are you calling in today? Okay, NTD, I can give you step 1045, ready for BFS uplink. I copy that. And Houston flight NTD?
NTD Houston flight.
Yes, sir. At this time, I'll give you step 1046, perform your BFS pre-flight uplink loading.
Okay, we'll put that in work. I can also give you 16808. The weather balloon system is no longer mandatory. And 161010, PSP deact is not required today.
And I copy no PSP deact. And SRO NTD?
SRO?
Yes, at this time, I'll give you step 808,
SRO?
the weather balloon system no longer required.
NTD, this is SRO on 212.
Yes, sir. I'll give you step 808, weather balloon system no longer required.
Copy all.
OTC, CDR Configure contingency abort yaw steering complete.
All right, and we still have the horizontal situation configuration in work. We copy. ACL, you called?
Yeah, I can give you step 942.
Copy, and the fill-ins for 943?
14.75. Into the launch director 212.
And launch director, can I have you stand by for just one moment?
Standing by.
And CDR OTC?
CDR, go ahead.
Report your cabin pressures per your checklist, sir.
OTC CPVD 212.
Yeah, PVD, you got to go configure your event doors.
Okay, copy. That is complete. 956. I can give you step 956. All vent doors, normal purge configuration.
And launch director NTD.
Yes, ma'am. Is the ice on the umbilical your only constraint right now?
Stand by, sir. I believe I'm showing two constraints. That'd be IPR 117 and 118.
Okay, copy.
OTC CDR on the spec. We have 14.79er on the gauge. We are just under 150 for the pressure.
Copy. ECL got that?
ECL copies.
And ECL with that, are we ready for CDR to perform as close the cabin vent valves at this time?
That's affirmative.
And CDR, you got to go close your cabin vent valves per your checklist.
CDR, closing vent valves per checklist.
Safety console and pack console NTD.
Safety.
Yes, sir. Step 950.
Safety copies. Pack copies.
We're watching the ICE team getting ready to leave the pad.
Valves are closed per the checklist.
Copy. And OTC, I'll give you step 951. Copy 951, and NTD, I'll give you at this time step 956. I copy all.
NTD Houston Flight 212.
Go ahead, Houston Flight.
I can give you a 16-1047 BFS pre-flight uplink load is complete.
And I copy that. And CDFS NTD? CDFS copies. And STM NTD?
STM.
Yes, sir. Per step 953, I'd like you to set up tracking of our closeout crew as they depart.
T-minus 10 minutes and counting, 1 minute away from going into our built-in hold, which should last about 23 minutes and 28 seconds. All of our constraints, items that we've worked during the countdown, they've all been closed out with the exception of this one item about the ice.
Copy 181.
And we're standing by now to go into the built-in hold. In 3, 2, 1, T minus 9 minutes and holding.
OTC PD. OTC MPS. Go ahead, MPS. Can I get a go for step 1083? That's the depletion sensor, command removal and final checkout. Yeah, if you're ready for that, we'll get with NTD and we'll be right back with you. Yeah, ma'am, you got to go. Go ahead and put 1083 in work. And MPS, you got to go for 1083. Copy that. And the 10 on the net, countdown clock is at T minus 9 minutes and holding. NTD CVFS.
Going to go now to the Johnson Space Center in Houston, where Flight Ascent commentator Kyle Herring will give us a status on mission control in Houston.
T minus 20 dump is complete.
Well, thanks, George, and good afternoon from the Johnson Space Center. This is Mission Control Houston at T minus 9 minutes and holding. The Ascent team has been on console here in the flight control room back in Houston since 7 this morning Central Time and is led by Flight Director Norm Knight, who's overseeing his 5th launch today. Handling communications with the crew aboard Atlantis after liftoff is astronaut Greg Johnson, who's no relation to pilot Greg Johnson aboard Atlantis right now. This Greg Johnson flew on STS 123 as the pilot back in March. Also serving as an interface with Chief Astronaut Steve Lindsay, who's flying weather reconnaissance around the Kennedy Space Center area, is astronaut Eric Bowe. The flight control team is really not monitoring any problems aboard the space shuttle, monitoring all of the systems along with the team there at the Kennedy Space Center, and hopefully should shortly notify the flight director it is ready to support the 30th launch of Atlantis this afternoon. The Ascent team has spent much of the day.
I'm ready whenever you are.
Go ahead.
Okay, I can tell you all of our ground cameras are ready to support, and if you're ready to copy the fill-ins.
I am.
The Ascent team has really been monitoring no problems aboard the vehicle. The weather conditions around the Kennedy Space Center are in great shape for launch today, and in the event of supporting a return to launch site abort during the early stages of the climb to orbit. Also, because of the inclination that Atlantis is launching into, a 28.5 degree inclination, essentially launching due east from the Kennedy Space Center. Today's transoceanic abort landing site is Morón in Spain. The conditions there are favorable for launch. They're both forecast and observed to be go for launch this afternoon at the preferred launch time of 2:01 and 56 seconds Eastern Daylight Time. Once Atlantis lifts off and clears the launch tower, its onboard guidance system will maneuver the orbiter to a heads-down position that puts it on the proper course and trajectory to achieve the desired orbit. At main engine cutoff, Atlantis will be in a 334 by 33 statute mile orbit. About 30 minutes later, that orbit will be refined using the orbital maneuvering system engines on the tail of the orbiter that place the vehicle in a 342 by 125 statute mile altitude for on-orbit operations. The launch actually serves as the first in a series of rendezvous burns designed to allow Atlantis to catch up with the Hubble Space Telescope. Rendezvous and grapple of the telescope is scheduled just before 1 o'clock Eastern Time Wednesday afternoon. At launch time, the Hubble Space Telescope, at an altitude of 342 statute miles, will be located almost directly above the Kennedy Space Center. 30 seconds into the flight, the 3 main engines will be throttled back to lessen the effects of the dense lower atmosphere on the orbiter, and less than a minute later, the shuttle will accelerate rapidly, reaching a speed of nearly 3,700 miles per hour at the point where the twin solid rocket boosters burn out and separate at 2 minutes, 2 seconds. Once in orbit, Atlantis' 3 main engines will be shut down at the 8.5-minute point, followed just a few seconds later by the separation of the large external fuel tank. With all of the systems on board the vehicle in good shape to support launch this afternoon, the only item of interest, and as you've heard George Diller talk about, is the investigation of some ice that's formed around the T0 umbilical. The Orbiter Project Office, led by Steve Stitch, who is on the scene down at the Kennedy Space Center, is interfacing with the debris, the damage assessment team back here in the mission evaluation room to assess that ice as to its effect or any impact that it would have on the launch today. They need another 15 minutes or so to evaluate. They're looking at the same type of ice that was formed on STS-126 pre-launch that flew back in November to see if they can envelop their analysis with that ice, which current projections are that may have actually been a little bit larger than what we're seeing right now, but they're still going to analyze that. The team out at the pad has taken some additional digital photographs. There's actually a mechanism on the launch pad to link those images through a laptop computer back to the firing room instantly and back to the teams to evaluate those images fairly quickly to hopefully clear the vehicle for launch this afternoon from a debris transport standpoint. And right now it looks like that shouldn't be an issue, but the teams will look at that a little bit further. Again, all of the other systems are in great shape to support launch this afternoon, and the flight control team here in Houston is standing by to take over control of Atlantis and the STS-125 mission at solid rocket booster ignition. At T-minus 9 minutes and holding, this is Mission Control, Houston.
C-LOX and CLHY? They were notified. NTD copies. And MTS, can you give me step 1112? For 1112, we're going to take a not performed option. Copy. And safety console and pack console NTD.
Safety? Pack.
Yes, I'll give you step 1060. Closeout cruise at AB11.
It goes. And pack copies.
NTD, this is SRO on 212.
Yes, SRO, go ahead.
Yes, can someone please call me on the West Direct line, please?
Yes, sir, we'll put that in work. NTD, CMQC. Go ahead. Yes, ma'am, all screens are cleared at this time. And CMQC, let's see.
This is shuttle launch control, T-minus 9 minutes and holding. We have 32 minutes, 28 seconds remaining in this planned built-in hold. This hold is slightly longer than what we advertised to you previously. That's going to be window remaining available, but our built-in hold is actually running over 40 minutes this time, and we have about 32 minutes remaining.
No additional work. They're clear to return.
Yes, ma'am, they have everything.
Weather-wise, we're watching gradual buildup of clouds associated with the sea breeze that's forming. We're still green, and we're also watching the fire off to the northwest to assure that that's not going to affect visibility to the shuttle landing facility. They did send the final inspection team back onto the mobile launcher platform to collect some additional measurements that they wanted, and they appear to be
17:52:56 GMT.
appear to be just wrapping that up.
17:52:56.
And right now, Mike Leinbach would like his engineering team to discuss the issue in about 10 minutes.
NTDSC. Go ahead, ma'am. Can we pick up an IPR on the ice? And let's see, SB, I do not believe we picked up an IPR on that yet. Can we pick up one on that so we can document this? Because we're going to be, if we do, we need to pick up, probably process LCC waiver to ISO 1 if we determine we're going to fly today, since it is outside of our 83-day experience base. Yes, ma'am, I would agree with that. And CMTC, can I get the next IPR number?
The next vehicle IPR number is 125 Victor, that's 0119.
Copy 119. I copy. And that'll be against our T-9 resume. MTC, copy step 1151.
I copy.
NTD, SRO on 212.
Go ahead, SRO.
Yes, can I get someone to call me on the voice direct line, please?
Yes, sir, we'll put it in work.
This should launch control at T-9 minutes and holding. We have 29 minutes and 23 seconds remaining in the built-in hold. And the final inspection team now driving off the pad ramp, headed back to the launch control center. The cloud buildup that Shuttle Weather Officer Catherine Winters is watching is off to the north of the pad, along the coastline.
And attention on the net, at this time we will perform our final launch window determination on step 12, on page 1228. And at step 1085, our launch window, we will be targeting our preferred launch time today of 18:01:56. And Houston flight NTD?
NTD Houston flight.
Yes, any updates to launch train back hold time per step 1086?
Negative 5:00.
I copy all. And attention on the net, our final launch window opening will be at 18:01:56 GMT and will close at 18:43:46 GMT. Our lock strain back hold time is 5 minutes 00 seconds based on performance. OTC, you copy?
OTC copy.
TBC.
TBC copies.
TTC.
TTC copies.
LPS.
LPS copies.
MILA.
Mila copy.
STM.
STM copies.
Safety console.
Safety console copies.
SPE. Copy window. LRD.
LRD copies.
SRO.
SRO copies.
CDR.
CDR copies.
And CGLS. CLS copies. That completes step 1087. And CGLS, we will set our countdown clock to resume at 1752 and 56 seconds. Step 1088. CLS copies. We have a pending resume set for 17:52:56 GMT. And I copy that.
We have 26 minutes, 15 seconds remaining in this built-in hold, as we heard from NASA Test Director Charlie Blackwell-Thompson. We are going to be staying with our same launch window that we've been proceeding toward.
From the CDR, the mid-deck MSs would like to pump up their suits for about 10 minutes.
And OTC copies.
Houston flight NTD.
NTD Houston flight, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Will we require our PASS, our BFS, launch target uplink loading today?
Those are not required.
Copy, not perform.
So our targeted launch time is still 2:01:56. Right now we're waiting for the ICE team to return to the Launch Control Center. We think from what we're able to tell so far that we are probably go, but we have to be able to prove it. So that's why we're waiting for them to get back, and we can see the pictures they've taken and look at their data.
NTD safety on 212.
Go ahead, safety.
Okay, the ICE inspection team, they're back at AB11, and with that, I can give you 1061.
Copy. All non-essential personnel have cleared the LDA.
Firm.
And STM NTD?
STM.
Yes, sir. You can terminate video tracking, step 1062.
Copy 1062.
And I'll also give you 1063. You can deactivate pad OIS.
STM, copy.
And SRO NTD?
SRO.
Yes, sir. At this time, I'll give you step 1065. KSC area, clear for launch.
SRO copies. And can someone please hit me up on the voice direct line? I have some information to pass to you.
And PLT OTC.
Go ahead for the PLT.
Clear your caution and warning hardware. Verify no unexpected errors.
PLT in work on clear hardware caution warning memory. OTC, PLT, clear hardware caution warning memory.
Copy, sir.
This is Shuttle Launch Control, T-minus 9 minutes in holding, 21 minutes 15 seconds remaining in this built-in hold. Along with repairing and replacing parts on Hubble, Atlantis' astronauts will install 2 new instruments that are expected to make scientific breakthroughs and discoveries and hopefully provide new answers to some of the mysteries of the universe. We'll go now to Candrea Thomas at the Kennedy Space Center press site for a look at the future of Hubble.
Thank you, George. We'll stand by here for any information from the launch team on the ice debris, and if any information comes back, we'll cut back to the firing room immediately. I'm here at the NASA News Center with Dave LaCrone, Senior Project Scientist for Hubble Space Telescope. And Dave, you're going to talk to us a little bit about the 2 new instruments that are going on to Hubble during this mission.
That's right. We're very excited about the technology that's in these instruments. They'll be much more powerful and more sensitive than anything we've had on Hubble before. Specifically, we have a new camera. It's called Wide Field Camera number 3 because it's the 3rd in the line of a particular heritage of camera designs. And like any camera, even your home camera, digital camera, you use a camera because you want to know what things look like. So we take pictures of the universe with these cameras so that we can see the shape of objects, how large they are, get some idea of how far away they are, what their colors are, how bright things are, whether it's stars or galaxies or planets in our own solar system. But this is a particularly sophisticated camera that for the first time will give Hubble great vision both at ultraviolet wavelengths where we don't get ultraviolet rays to the ground, because if we did we'd all have skin cancer, and in visible light and in near infrared light. So we call this a panchromatic camera because it covers such a wide range of colors. And it in particular is going to really help us put together the life story of galaxies and how they form from their infancy way back just after the Big Bang all the way forward to our own time and with nearby galaxies and even our own Milky Way galaxy. And the fundamental question is, where did we come from? And our camera will help us deduce that. Okay. And then we have the cosmic origin spectrograph. Got to explain what a spectrograph is. It's the workhorse instrument. It's the most important tool in the hands of astrophysicists. An astrophysicist is a person who tries to figure out what things are made of, how hot they are, how dense they are, how fast they're moving back and forth, or how fast they're rotating. So it doesn't take pretty pictures. So these spectrographs are not glamorous, but the scientists really need them to get quantitative information about the cosmos. And in particular, the cosmic origin spectrograph is the most sensitive, I'd say, ultraviolet spectrograph we've ever put on board Hubble. It can't observe visible rays, but it observes in the ultraviolet. There's a tremendous amount of information there about the content and the temperature and the density and physical properties of things out in the universe. Now, in particular, the cosmic origin spectrograph has one job it really wants to do badly. It wants to look way out across space at very bright objects that we call quasi-stellar sources. They're interesting in their own right, but mainly they're great flashlights. They're extremely bright sources of light. And they send a beam of light in our direction, and it passes through the material that's between us and that quasi-stellar source. And that beam intercepts gas between us and the quasar, and some of the light from the beam gets absorbed out by the chemicals in the gas. So it allows us to tell what the gas is made of and how hot it is and so forth. This is very important because that's the gas from which galaxies form. So if we want to understand the process by which galaxies form physically, we need to actually get quantitative measurements of the stuff that's going into making new galaxies.
Now, I understand, earlier we talked to one of the project people, and we found out that there's going to be repairs for 2 of the already existing instruments, and that those are going to complement these. How does that happen? Well,
one of the 2 instruments is the advanced camera for surveys, and it's a very powerful camera as well, has somewhat similar light sensors as Wide Field Camera 3. And because the 2, we hope, will be able to work in tandem, we consciously designed Wide Field Camera 3 to complement Advanced Camera for Surveys. In particular, Advanced Camera for Surveys is great in visible light, the light you can see with your eye, and maybe just a little redward of that. And because it's so great in those colors, we've designed this camera to be really great in the ultraviolet and in the near infrared. So great coverage all the way from the ultraviolet through the visible, the red, and the infrared with these 2 cameras together. And Cosmic Origin Spectrograph similarly has capabilities that the repaired spectrograph does not have, and vice versa.
Okay, great. Well, it will be exciting to see what kind of imagery comes out of these instruments. Right. Dave, thank you so much for your time and enlightening us on the new instruments. And George, we'll head back to you to have an update on the countdown. Thank you.
Shuttle launch control, 15 minutes, 55 seconds remaining. Shuttle Launch Director Mike Leinbach is being briefed by the ICE inspection team right now. So we should have the outcome of that here in just a couple of minutes. Talking about the size and the density of the ice and the location of it and where it would likely go if it falls off. They're somewhat smaller and lower in density than expected. All the different areas now are weighing in with their opinion about what the effect would be.
We'll put that into work with this one. Thank you.
Three smaller pieces than originally thought, and the density is lower, and also the sun is melting, so the impact to the fuselage is not a concern. And at this time, we have processed an LCC deviation. We've got concurrence from all parties, and at this time, we can remove the constraint IPR 119.
I copy that, Terry. That's great news. We'll take 119 off the constraints list, and at this time I show no constraints.
And NTD, Launch Director on 212.
Go ahead, sir.
Yes, ma'am. You've been keeping up with your workload. We're sitting at a little under 10 minutes left in the hold, and you're in good shape.
Yes, sir. I'm waiting to perform my L-15 recorder activation, and I have my pole remaining.
Okay. Outstanding. Great job.
Thank you, sir.
OTC, CPVD.
Go, PVD.
Payload pay purge flow rate set for launch at step 1121, and step 1118 was performed.
Copy. Thank you very much.
This is shuttle launch control, 9 minutes, 18 seconds remaining in our hold at T-9. Right now the direction is to press on. Shuttle Weather Officer Kathy Winters is now briefing Mike Leinbach on a cloud buildup north of the pad. We're currently green, but they're having to keep an eye on that. We got 8.5 minutes remaining in the hold, then 9 minutes to get to a T0 after we pick up.
Pick up any paper on that. Do you think we need to?
We need to pick up a GSE PR on that one.
Right.
Non-conformance on that one.
And let's see, can I have you and FCP work that over on your channel?
Yeah, we can work that with PRSD on my channel.
And let's see, SPE and FCP recommended go for launch in this configuration with no constraint. Do you concur with that?
I concur with that.
Okay. And FCP, if you could work with SPE over on 161.
So we're watching on the buildup north of the pad on that cloud buildup. If that gets up above about 18,000 feet or so, on the tops on that, it's within 5 miles of the pad. We might have to go red, but right now we're still green.
And CISL, JRPS, and Houston Flight, NTD.
This is CISL.
JRPS.
This Houston Flight.
At this time, you can perform the L-15-minute recorder activation. ISL, you copy?
ISL copies.
JRPS. JRPS copies? And Houston Flight.
Houston Flight copies. We'll put it in work.
MS1 OTC.
OTC, MS1, go.
Your V10 recorder, go ahead and activate that at this time, sir.
V10 recorder in work.
Attention on the net, this is the NTD performing the launch status checks. Verify ready to resume count and go for launch. OTC. OTC, go.
TBC.
TBC's go.
PTC.
PTC is go.
LPS.
LPS is go.
Houston Flight.
Houston Flight is go.
MILA.
Milo's go.
STM.
STM is go.
Safety Console.
Safety consoles go.
SPE.
SP is go.
LRD.
LRD is go.
SRO.
SRS go. You have a range clear to launch.
And CDR.
CDR and entire crew is go.
And I copy that. That completes step 1122. Launch Director, NTD.
Launch Director?
Yes, sir. Our launch team is ready to proceed. We are tracking no constraints.
Okay, I copy that. I'll do my poll at this time. KC Chief Processing Engineer, verify no constraints to launch.
No constraints, Mike.
Thank you, Steve. KC Safety and Mission Assurance.
KC Safety and Mission Assurance is go.
Copy. Payload Launch Manager.
Mike, Hubble Program and Hubble Ground Processing are go for his launch.
Copy that. Thank you, Bill. Range Weather.
Weather has no constraints for launch.
Thank you, Kathy. And Ops Manager.
Mike, we've cleared our issues. The MMT isn't tracking anything else. Everything looks good. You're go to launch.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Atlantis Launch Director.
Atlantis, ready to copy, Launch Director.
Okay, Scooter. Well, look, it's a great day to go fly. So on behalf of the KSC Processing and Launch Team, I'd like to wish you, your crew, and the whole Hubble Space Telescope team a great mission. Good luck, Godspeed, and we'll see you back here in about 11 days.
Well, from the whole crew, Mike, I just want to say thank you. All I can really think is that at last our launch has come along. It's been a long time coming. I know it took the work of the entire team across our entire agency to bring us to this point. Looking back, it's been 50 years since President Kennedy challenged us to do the other thing, not because it was easy, but because it was hard. Getting to this point has been challenging, but your team, the whole team, everyone has pulled together. We're taking a little piece of all of us into space, and at this point, all I got left to say is let's launch Atlantis. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Scooter, and enjoy the ride, pal. NTD, Launch Director,
You got it.
You are clear to launch Atlantis.
I copy that, sir. And attention on the net, we have 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining in our hold here at 9.
OTC MS-1, complete with the V10 recorder.
Copy. Thanks, Mike. And attention on the net, our countdown clock will resume in 2 minutes mark.
2 minutes to the final 9 minutes of our countdown for Space Shuttle Atlantis. All issues have been cleared.
And CISL NTD?
This is ISL.
Yes, looking for an update on our recorder activation.
It's in work.
In 90 seconds.
Entity ISL.
Go ahead.
OI recorder activation is complete.
I copy that. Thank you, sir.
And we're 1 minute now from coming out of the hold at T-minus 9 minutes.
My countdown clock will resume in 30 seconds.
Fif 15 seconds to picking up the count.
The countdown clock will resume on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. T-minus 9 minutes and counting. DLS auto sequence has been initiated.
The ground launch sequencer now controlling the countdown. It will monitor over 1,000 parameters.
POP adjusting screen brightness across the board.
Copy. EPD. This is EPD.
Yeah, they're adjusting the screen lighting up there.
Copy.
Next major activity will be retracting the crew orbiter access arm.
Connect essential buses to fuel cells per your checklist.
OTC POP in work.
And we're about 30 seconds away from retracting the orbiter access arm.
OTC POP, connect essential buses to fuel cell is complete.
Copy.
CLS's go for orbiter access arm retract.
Atlantis OTC, best of luck upgrading the HST to increase our knowledge for light years to come.
OTC, Atlantis copies. We're looking forward to it, and we'll give it our best.
T-minus 7 minutes. 7 minutes to launch. View of all of our invited guests. Orbiter access arm in the process of being moved away from the crew access hatch.
JRPS OTC. This is JRPS. Start APU display recorders. Recorders are running. TLT, perform APU pre-start.
OTC PLT at work. Okay, it's 3 coming to low. Okay, full apply. Fuel takeoff. 3 guy got tucks. And OTC PLT, 3 gray talkbacks.
Copy PLT.
Orbiter auxiliary power units will start in 15 seconds at T-minus 5 minutes. T-minus 5 minutes and counting.
Go for orbiter APU start.
TLT, perform APU start.
OTC PLT in work.
CDR, reconfigure heaters.
CDR is heater reconfigured work.
We're starting the data recorders here in the firing room.
OTC CDR heater reconfig complete.
Copy.
OTC PLP, 3 good APUs.
Copy.
To start the orbiter aerosurface profile test.
CLS is go for purge sequence 4.
And we'll have a steering check of the main engines in about another 15 seconds. Minus 3 minutes. The main engines are now in their start position.
LO2 pressurization. PLT, clear caution warning memory, verify no unexpected errors.
OTC PLP in work.
Gaseous oxygen vent arm now being retracted.
Atlantis, close and lock your visors and initiate O2 flow.
And Atlantis has visors coming closed and locked. And pseudo-2 coming on. We are ready.
CLS is go for ET, LH2 pressurization.
Solid rocket booster cameras have been activated.
Minute, 30 seconds.
Sound suppression water system has been armed. No birds observed in the immediate vicinity of the flight path. Final check of the SRB commands. SRB joint heaters being turned off. Liquid oxygen, liquid hydrogen fill and drain valves, everything closed. Handoff to Atlantis has occurred from the ground launch sequencer.
20.
Nozzle check of the SRBs. Firing chain is armed. Sound suppression water system armed. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1. And liftoff of Space Shuttle Atlantis. A final visit to enhance the vision of Hubble into the deepest grandeur of our universe.
Bypass across the board, Scooter, no action.
Houston now controlling, Atlantis on its way. Atlantis on its way, all three engines now throttling down as the vehicle passes through the area of maximum dynamic pressure.
Atlantis, Houston, no action on the MPS H2 out P.
Houston, we copy, no action.
Atlantis, go at throttle up.
Houston, Atlantis copies, go at throttle up.
7 miles in altitude. Altitude 49,000 feet. Flight control team discussing the minor transients that we're seeing at liftoff. All 3 engines are in good shape. The vehicle is headed downrange. All 3 hydraulic systems in good shape, as are the fuel cells. Atlantis is 18 miles and altitude, downrange 23 miles. Already traveling 2,500 miles per hour, approaching staging, the burnout of the twin solid rocket boosters, which have been burning fuel at a rate of about 11,000 pounds per second. Solid rocket boosters have done their job. Atlantis is continuing in its due easterly course to catch up with the Hubble Space Telescope one last time. Altitude 35 miles, downrange from the Kennedy Space Center 51 miles, altitude 195,000 feet. Atlantis is traveling 3,300 miles per hour. Again, all 3 main engines are in good shape, as are the hydraulic systems, the auxiliary power units, and the fuel cells. No issues heading to orbit.
Atlantis, 2-engine Maroon.
Houston, Atlantis copies, 2-engine Maroon.
3 minutes into the flight, Atlantis.
H2 out P is a deucer only, and the ASA 1 is a power only.
Copy, ASA 1 power only, and the H2 is deucer.
Approaching 4 minutes into the flight. Altitude 310,000 feet, downrange from the Kennedy Space Center.
Houston, we copy, negative return.
And for Ray J, you can disregard MPS H2 out P on the left.
Copy, box, disregard MPS out P on the left.
That call.
Atlantis, press to ATO.
Houston, Atlantis copies, press to ATO.
Those calls indicate that Atlantis can reach orbit on 2 engines should one fail. Again, all 3 are in good shape. The calls that you're hearing are related to a bad transducer only. The systems are in good shape. Atlantis is 208 miles away from the Kennedy Space Center. The vehicle can no longer return to the Kennedy Space Center in the event that there is some systems problems. But again, all the systems are in good shape. Approaching 5 minutes into the flight, Atlantis is 65 miles in altitude, traveling almost 6,500 miles per hour now, downrange from the Kennedy Space Center, 246 miles. Again, all systems in good shape. The only issues were a bad transducer, so the crew is told to disregard that. They're getting cues from all of the other systems on board.
Houston, Atlantis, copy, press to MECO.
5 minutes, 20 seconds into the flight, Atlantis can reach a safe orbit on 2 engines now, but again, all 3 are in good shape.
Atlantis, single engine, ops 3.
Houston, we copy, single engine, ops 3.
Atlantis, single engine Banjul 104.
Copy, single engine Banjul 104.
That call indicating that Atlantis could reach Banjul in the Gambia, although that is not a transoceanic abort landing site.
Atlantis, negative Marone, select Banjul.
Houston, we copy. Negative Marone, selecting Banjul.
Vehicle rolling to heads up now to get good communications through the tracking and data relay satellite system. 6 minutes, 25 seconds into the flight. Downrange from the launch site, 4,030 miles. Altitude, 353,000 feet, or about 67 miles.
Press 109.
Houston, we copy. Single engine press 109.
Your shutdown plan is nominal. You are go for the plus X and go for the pitch.
Houston, we copy. Nominal shutdown, go plus X, go pitch.
A call indicates that Atlantis can reach orbit on one engine should two fail. Again, all three are in good shape. Approaching 7 minutes into the flight. The plus X is a maneuver that's conducted after the vehicle separates from the external fuel tank. These views from the camera on the feed line on the external fuel tank looking up at Atlantis. We'll lose that view here in about a minute or so.
Atlantis, the deucer's going to toggle no action.
Again, referring to the faulty transducer, no action required by the crew. All systems in good shape. The three engines are now beginning to throttle back as it prepares to pass through 3 times gravity to maintain that on the structural vehicle. And Atlantis is just about to move out of range of the Merritt Island tracking station ground site. We expect to lose the view from the feed line camera as the vehicle approaches the point of main engine cutoff here in just a few seconds. Main engine cutoff has been confirmed. Atlantis now in orbit, beginning its chase to catch up with the Hubble Space Telescope.
Atlantis, Houston, nominal MECO, ohms 1 is not required.
Houston, we copy. Nominal MECO, ohms 1 not required.
Flight Director Norm Knight polling his team for on-time shutdown of the auxiliary power units that have provided the hydraulic power to Atlantis for the climb to orbit. Those hydraulic systems no longer required until the day before landing, when all of the systems are checked out for entry. There were no systems problems climbing to orbit. There was obviously a transducer that provided some faulty information. The booster officer had plenty of other insight into systems. Therefore, a lot of the calls you heard were no action to the crew, as they would see the same indications on board. Regardless, Atlantis hit its targets, climbing to orbit. No OMS 1 burn required, as is typical. The first burn that is coming up is the OMS 2 burn, as it's known, the orbital maneuvering system engines on the tail of the orbiter, used for larger orbit adjust maneuvers of the space shuttle. The current orbit is 334 by 33 statute miles. And the OMS 2 burn, which is coming up in about 32 minutes, will raise the high side of Atlantis' orbit by about 8 miles to 342, and the low side by about 100 miles up to 125 statute miles. It'll still be an elliptical orbit, but that's a desired orbit as Atlantis begins the rendezvous activities leading up to docking with the Hubble Space Telescope on Wednesday early afternoon.
Atlantis, Houston for the white pages when you're ready.
Go ahead for the white pages. We're just trying to get a tally on the tank.
Copy. When you get there, your go for APU hide shutdown. Tail-only control is not required, and everything else is nominal through page 3-4.
Copy. Nominal through 3-4, tail-only not required, and you're ready for the shutdown when we are.
That's a good readback. Your preliminary OMS 2 TIG, 43:30.
Copy, 4330.
That's a good readback, Scooter.
And the crew is now in its ascent checklist, continuing to step through procedures to configure the vehicle for orbit operations. Again, the climb to orbit from a system standpoint was just fine. There was a transducer that did obviously malfunction, but plenty of backup, giving insight that the systems on board were in good shape for the climb to orbit. In fact, none of the systems had any issues at all during Atlantis' launch. Now, just under 14 minutes into the flight, the crew will continue through the ascent checklist, and will have an opportunity now to switch back down to Florida, the Kennedy Space Center, for the various launch replays from the cameras positioned strategically around the launch site.
Atlantis, say again.
Stand by, Houston.
Atlantis, Houston, we are 1 minute until spreading.
Houston, Atlantis, copies, 1 minute till spreading.
We're planning to uplink targets, and there are no further deltas to the white pages all the way through 3-8.
Copy, we're clear through 3-8. And Houston, we show ourselves.
Atlantis, Houston, we did not copy. We just heard a clip call.
Okay, Houston, we thought we might have been in the middle of spreading. We're ready for the Apple 105.
We are ready for 105.
Houston, we're ready to load targets.
Atlantis, Houston, hold off for now. We're putting targets on board.
Okay, waiting for your targets to come up.
Atlantis, Houston, your targets are on board. You have a go to load. Your new TIG is 43:45.
43:45, 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43:45, 43:45. 43 ST43:45. We see that on board now, and with the go to load, we'll put that in work.
Atlantis, Houston, we like your solution and your go-to attitude on time.
Houston, copy. Go to maneuver on time.
And Atlantis, Houston, as a reminder, check DAP to auto before you maneuver.
That's a great reminder. Just finishing up the ET shots.
Atlantis, Houston, for Ray J, you are go for MPS power down.
Copy, go for power down, and it's complete.
This is Mission Control Houston. We're still enjoying replays of Atlantis' climb to orbit. The crew is continuing to step through the procedures in the ascent checklist. They've closed the external tank umbilical doors on the underside of Atlantis. They've also powered down and isolated the main propulsion system as it's no longer required for the duration of the mission. Atlantis is now also being maneuvered to the OMS 2 or orbital maneuvering system burn. The clock's counting backward to that burn 14 minutes from now.
Atlantis, Houston for the white pages.
Go ahead, Houston, for the white pages.
Yes, Scooter, we'd like you to check the 812 steps on page 3-4.
Yeah, we held off on those for a minute while we were shooting the ET. Good reminder for us to get them.
Copy. We figured there was a reason. Atlantis, Houston for the upcoming OMS burn.
Go ahead for the burn, Houston.
Scooter, we're going to have a short handover about 45 seconds prior to the burn. We should have you locked up for the burn start. and also there are no deltas to the ohms to burn cards.
Copy, no deltas to the burn card, and we'll have the handover. You should have us at the burn.
That's a good readback. Atlantis Houston for COM. COM might be a little bit ready as we approach the burn. Should clear up just prior to the burn.
Copy box. COM should clear up just prior to the burn, but maybe ready before. And Houston, just to tag up with you, we have finished A12, and we powered down some of the displays, if you've seen those messages.
Copy, we saw that.